But yeah, this race is really approaching, and it's getting pretty damn intense. I'm sure people have probably been paying attention, but Nina went from having this massive lead in the polls, 30 points or more, at least according to her internal polling. It seems like that's really whittled down now. The establishment has gotten involved in this race, needless to say. Obviously, we remember Hillary Clinton got involved and endorsed Shontel Brown, Nina's established opponent. Also, the Congressional Black Caucus got involved and endorsed Shontel Brown. Of course, Nina's held her own with her own endorsements, and it still has an advantage when it comes to fundraising, certainly grassroots fundraising. But I think there's been a lot of interesting twists and turns in this race, and I'm not going to lie, I have had some criticisms of Nina Turner. I've also thought she's been unfairly attacked a lot. So I'd be interested to see what you guys think about this race at this point in time, where you think it's headed, if you have any predictions and any advice for Nina or voters too, if they're still kind of trying to make up their mind maybe.
Well, so, personally, I think Nina is paying the price of the that was put on her from the progressives that aren't responding to the public outcry. I think a lot of the woes of her campaign are that she's seen as this firecracker progressive, and we've been let down by so many firecracker progressives. As far as the campaign she's running, I don't think she's run a bad campaign necessarily. In some ways, she's putting out an appeal to centrists because she lives in a heavily centrist district, and that's inevitable. Unfortunately, you can't just come out and be a crazy hard left progressive and win in that district. But that doesn't excuse all the flaws of her campaign. But on the other hand, if you're on the fence about Nina Turner, look at Shontel Brown and look at her campaign she's run. Look at who's backing her. On her own webpage, she's got. We talked about this on our last show. Is they're using red boxing, which is the way that campaigns, it's a phrase that was created to describe campaigns skirting the election laws about colluding with super PACs. And so this term was called red boxing when campaigns would hint to their super PACs how they want you to use your money to support their campaign. And so Shontel Brown is literally flaunting that on her website in a red box, a literal red box, saying how to smear Nina Turner. These are the talking points. And she's also in that area quoting one of the Republicans is backing. There's a Republican super PAC backing her on this website. And she has the gall to quote him.
Yeah. And it's totally dishonest, right? They're saying that she voted against the Democratic platform and she's against Medicare for all and she's against a $15 minimum wage. And it's completely dishonest. It's like the David Brock, correct the record, Nina Tandon, really despicable kind of campaigning that, up until Hillary's run in 2008, I didn't know that Democrats did that. I was sort of like a neophyte. I hadn't seen it. And then I started seeing, wow, Democrats are acting just like Republicans. And it's so repulsive. It is really unfortunate because for all the talk of unity, which we know was completely bad faith, talk during Bernie's run and how we should all get behind the Democrats. She had, as you said, at one point I thought it was almost maybe 50-point lead. It's a safe Democratic seat, right? So where was the unity? And instead, they're just all going to run against her because they're serving their corporate donors. So it's just, it's the same story.
Yeah, only unity towards the center, right? Everybody else can go fuck themselves. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think, Pat, you also raised a really important, skepticism that people have that I think is fair and justifiable. Obviously, there's been all kinds of bad faith attacks against Nina Turner, but I think the one handicap that has been brought on her by the progressive movement and a lot of the things that she's done and some of the things that she said is she hasn't tried to distinguish herself from the squad members that are already in Congress. And collectively, as a progressive movement, a lot of people feel let down by those members that have already been elected. She's already said, I'm going to let you down. Not exactly the kind of rhetoric you want to campaign with. She didn't say that, that she was going to bring unity to the squad after they said we all vote alone, right? So I think a lot of people are more ambivalent towards this race, especially outside the district. I think if you're in this district, race is really important because it's going to actually impact your life. But as far as national legislation and all that kind of stuff, and I guess you could argue that nobody's representative actually impacts your life. It's going to be worse for people, obviously, if she loses the race. I don't want to put that into whatever. But I think that for people to get out and, somebody from Oklahoma who's a progressive, or somebody from New Hampshire who's a progressive, who at a time may have donated to AOC or Cori Bush or Paula Jean Swearengin or whoever the hell, at another time in their life, they wanted to see these firebrands uprise. Some win, some didn't, right? But now they're going to be like, no, this isn't worth my $5. This isn't worth my win in a prayer anymore.
Well, that being said, Zach, and I generally agree with you and have agreed with you up until this point, but I actually have been doing a little bit of deep thinking on this issue and thinking back to the Bernie Sanders race, because up until now I was kind of comparing Nina Turner's performance campaigning for Bernie to her performance campaigning for herself, and I was kind of disappointed that she seemed a little bit more like lethargic, not as passionate and not as intense. But then I started thinking, and actually this New York Times piece points out something pretty interesting that I think is very accurate, that not enough progressive candidates take into account here. And that is that it's saying that while Turner has more money, grassroots donations, Shontel Brown does have the more reliable voters, many of which are older, more affluent, and white. And I think that's actually extremely accurate. And what we saw happening in the race with Bernie Sanders too, Bernie kind of assumed that he would turn out this new demographic, like all these new voters would come to the poll, youth would come out, the working class people that normally didn't take the time, they would come out. And unfortunately, he was kind of wrong. It may have been a little bit better on him strategically if he did kind of try to court some of the older voters, some of the voters that ended up, throwing the race to Biden. Not that there weren't plenty of shenanigans happening behind the scenes too. So, I mean, well, I certainly personally would rather see Nina, really out there, really just on fire. I think she's making a strategic, calculated decision that's based in the reality which she just witnessed going down mere months ago with the Bernie Sanders campaign. So this is a very tricky race to run. This is a very tricky district. And while I'm certainly, not going to, have any, I'm not going to mince my words if she actually gets elected. I think as far as strategy goes, you have to understand why she's doing it this way.
Yeah. Well, and she's also, she has been pretty outspoken about the things she believes in. I think she ran an ad with Medicare for All. Like she's not downplaying her progressive policies that she champions, but I think you're right. Like when she would take the stage before Bernie and like rile up the crowd, I still get chills every time I see these videos, and that's been a little bit lacking, but I think you're correct. And it's borne out with, you see the difference in the polls now. I guess, the more they lie and run dishonest ads against her, those voters show up for the mainstream candidates.
Yeah. And I'd say that I think the big problem overall is still our indie, lefty, whatever, honest media doesn't exist on a local level as much as it does nationally. Like, so Twitter is great at, if you're following politics on Twitter, you're going to have a pretty nuanced perspective. You're going to see our perspective, whether you like it or not. Right. And you're going to realize that yours might be in the minority if you're a centrist, at least on Twitter. But on the local level, it doesn't help. It doesn't get down to this race or that race. Like there's no real forum to get that out there. It's great for fundraising, like Nina's crushing the fundraising because she's got all this national support for her local race. But the national media isn't projected into her town, in her space. Ohio isn't seeing you or me or any of these people that want to support her campaign. So it's as always, they're beholden on the mainstream media press and what they say, and that's why Bernie lost. That's why a lot of these candidates lose at the end of the day.
Yeah. Do you know, was there any pushback on those flyers that Shontel Williams dark money sent out? Shontel Brown dark money sent out? Do you know?
I'm actually not 100% sure what the response to that was. Do you know, Gavin?
From what I've seen, there's been pushback from people like us, but as far as the actual voters, I'm not sure to what extent they've been educated about the misinformation in that flyer, which was insane. If you saw that flyer, it was crazy. They're trying to make it look like Nina Turner didn't support Medicare for All, didn't support raising the minimum wage because she had voted no on the Democratic Party platform, which explicitly excluded those things. So she was taking. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Well, and so her opponent doesn't support them either, but by saying that Nina doesn't, it's like a tacit, not even, it's like she is showing that she knows that's what voters want, right? So
And she's trying to, imply that she is for those things without ever actually endorsing them,
Yeah.
It's very bogus. And it is. This is one of the manifestations of like the swamp, right? Like this is what the Democratic Party will do to crush somebody, because I think you have to, regardless of what my criticisms of Nina Turner's campaign style have been, you have to recognize that the Democratic Party must be shit scared of her because they are willing to go to these great lengths to keep her out of office. They saw that massive lead and they were like, everybody get the fuck on this. Money, congressional black caucus, Hillary fucking Clinton, whoever we got. I'm surprised Obama hasn't weighed in.
He might. I was
just going to say, we're going to see Obama watch.
Yeah.
Mayday 2 days before the election.
Absolutely.
His money cave for the third time in the last 5 years.
Exactly. And I'm wondering if you guys have any opinions on this theory too. And I know that it's still a little bit of a long shot and it may be just total fantasy. But I remember not that long ago, before she announced her congressional campaign, I believe Nina Turner actually went on the Young Turks and said that she was in fact considering running for president in 2024. And the Democratic Party wants to lock that motherfucker down. They don't want any challengers coming up and trying to challenge Joe Biden and or Kamala Harris, whoever runs, whatever combination of shit lib establishment Democrats ends up being the Democratic Party ticket in 2024. They're terrified of someone like Nina, coming up Bernie Sanders style to challenge their attempted coronation like they did in 2016. Of course, that created the progressive left that we now know, that we're now part of, that we now exist in. So I'm wondering, obviously, I think Nina Turner wants genuinely to serve her district. So I'm not saying she's just using this as a jumping board for higher office. But if she wins this race, it's definitely going to up her name recognition. It's definitely going to up her clout. It's definitely going to up her ability to be competitive in a presidential primary where she decide to get involved. And again, this would just add to her credibility immensely. Up until now, the thing people have said why Nina Turner couldn't run for president is that she doesn't have enough experience. She was just a state senator, et cetera, et cetera. But this would, completely destroy that talking point. And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts on that, and maybe if that's why the DNC is just so terrified of her. They don't want to make another star out of a firebrand progressive.
I think you're right. I just got actually chills again when you said that. I was like, oh yes, she could, of course that's why they're throwing everything at her, because they know who she is. They know that she actually has integrity. They know that people adore her. And if they weren't scared, they wouldn't be doing this, So I think you're right.
I mean, if she got into office and called out her own party as much as we'd like the squad to call out their own party, that alone would be devastating to Democrats. And that, whether she runs for office or not, just having a voice that is constantly critical of Democrats and not sort of placating progressives like a lot of the squad have been would be huge.